Hello and welcome, loyal viewers of this channel that watch literally everything I do because you're creepy and somehow you got surveillance cameras inside my home. Today we are going to be talking about what has fastly become one of my favorite shows right here on the internet.com, The Real Talk, which apparently is a knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff of The View with way more diversity that is also on television. I always thought it was on YouTube only exclusively, but apparently there's a thing called television. What even is that? Let me know in the comments of this video. But what's interesting about this segment is not really what's been said in the segment. It's about how some people in Hollywood are talking about how wokeism is stifling creativity and may lead to doom and gloom for Hollywood. This is the get woke, go broke thing that a lot of you are familiar with, but in reality doesn't play out as often as the people who say it actually mean when they say it. It's actually very rare for something to get woke and go broke. You have to be really garbage and an IP that people aren't very interested in order for this to be actually effective. But before we get into this, before you get your healthy dose of whatever, we got Health with Justice transition sponsorship, transition sponsorship, Health with Justice. One of the causes of lines on your face, wrinkles, is a lack of collagen. It's a protein responsible for skin elasticity and that youthful look. And as you get older, you lose about 10% of your natural collagen per decade. It's pretty bad. You're starting to look pretty old. However, there is a solution. Over at Health with Justice, you can get your hands on this elite collagen powder. I take this stuff every morning, just pop it into my coffee, and I have the softest itty bitty baby skin that you could possibly imagine. In fact, when I was in Texas with Nuance Pro and I was buying some stuff at the store, they carded me. They said, "Sean, you look too young. We need to see your ID. It must have been the collagen supplement that you're taking over at Health with Justice." And just for you guys on the internet.com, just for you guys watching my channel, you now can get yourself 51% off if you use my personal affiliate link, healthwithjustice.com. That's healthwithjustice.com. Get your baby soft baby skin like I have and restore all your youthful glow.
It seems wokery will be the death of Hollywood, according to some industry directors. Some are feeling as if white males are being pushed out of the screenwriting business in favor of hiring white women and people of color. Now, in addition, some directors have also stated that the shift toward wokeism has also stifled creativity as writers tread carefully to avoid offending viewers.
So the basic premise put forward by this Hollywood insider or whoever gave this is that writers are being pulled out of the writer's room because they are white or male, or because they're Jewish and male, because Jewish people are sometimes just perceived as white whenever it's convenient, and they're being replaced by white women and minorities. And this is leading to a stifling of creativity because you're not giving writers the job based on their skill, based on their merit, based on their ability to write. And the same thing that is putting these people into the writer's room is also terrifying these people to actually write interesting and compelling characters. Now, the panel has a little bit of a different take on this, and I'm going to just throw it over to them so you guys can understand where they're coming from before we get into what's actually going on.
So, ladies, I gotta know, what are your thoughts on this? Garcelle, being in this industry as an actress, is this a bunch of hokey?
I don't think it's a bunch of hokey because I do think that the world has changed and a lot of people who weren't woke before are woke now. But what's happening is the scale is tipping the other way. Normally, it's the creative teams in the rooms that I've been in have been a lot of white men or white people. And so what's happening now, we're finally getting the shift where African-American people are getting the jobs, women are getting the jobs, LGBTQ people are getting the jobs. And I think that is ruffling a lot of feathers because for so long, they were used to sort of telling the narrative. And the thing is, we want the narrative to come from us if it's about us.
One of the things that's always interesting and compelling anytime you're dealing with left-wing people is how many words they use to say oh so very little. So what this actress lady, and by the way, I literally only know the name of Lonnie, the woman that's actually in the studio, because she's the one who occasionally says things that are correct, therefore she gets that respect of me knowing her name, is that, listen, the white people, they've been running the show for way too long, and and we want diverse stories told by diverse people. And she specifically emphasizes African Americans, which you may think, oh, why is she doing that? Why has she got to racialize it when they're just talking about wokeism? But honestly, this is the kernel of truth presented in what she just said. Because white people, look at the polling, don't care about race. By contrast, black people care about race the most. So if you're trying to mass market to the widest possible audience, and one section of your audience, the largest section of your audience, cares the least about race, and a sizable minority of your audience cares the most about race, it's actually practical and logical for you to attempt to satiate those people by putting in more black characters into the movies, because black people won't show up to the movies. They're using their market power to demand what they want to see on screen, and it is having an effect. And in this way, it's actually coming partially from the grassroots, from the ground up. And on top of that, we've seen people become successful. I've talked about him multiple different times. Tyler Perry, you may not like his movies. He didn't go to film school, and it shows in the cinematography and everything about his movies. But Tyler Perry thought black people were underserved with movies. He made movies specifically for black people, and he's been incredibly successful. And he was able to build himself a studio in Georgia, a studio that major other studios, when they're shooting movies or TV shows, actually use in their production. So people will film Marvel movies partially in Tyler Perry's studio because Tyler Perry believed that black people, factually, by the way, care the most about race, and if he served them directly, targeted them directly, he would be able to make himself into a successful filmmaker, regardless of the quality of his film. So it's logical when you see somebody profiting in the way that Tyler Perry's profiting, for Hollywood as a whole to try to cater to those people. Now, that's one thing that's logical, and I don't have a problem with it. Contrary to some clown that reviews Disney theme parks who doesn't understand the things that I say in my video, and actually left comments saying that I was angry that not enough minorities were killed in the Scream 5 movie, I don't care about having black characters, female characters, Hispanic characters, non-white characters, white characters, as long as you emphasize the most important part. And it's not the black, it's not the Hispanic, it's not the person of color, it's not the LGBTQXIIZJJYKZZW, it's not the woman part, it's the character part. And what these people tend to overlook throughout the course of this segment is the fact that these are not characters that are being presented to us. People are trying to see diverse faces on the screen, or trying to produce diverse faces on the screen for a general audience, but the reason that the general audience at times is rejecting these characters is because they are not characters. Because writers, the most important part of that statement early on, let me play it for you again.
Now, in addition, some directors have also stated that the shift toward wokeism has also stifled creativity as writers tread carefully to avoid offending viewers.
Are scared to give characters flaws, some texture, some grit, something off about them that they need to overcome, because in the woke world, every single minority character is indicative of the entire minority population, and you can't present them with any flaws because therefore they need to overcome and live up to white supremacist or male patriarchy standards. This is why you see a lot of movies where the main character doesn't have a character arc. They start off as really good, and typically they have to discover the talent they had within them all along. They don't have to refine the talent, or they have to remember the fact that they're totally awesome to overcome their flaw. This is not a real legitimate character arc. And to that guy who reviews Disney theme park rides, my issue with Scream was not that they were minority characters. My issue with Scream is that when you have a cast and there are minority characters, and those minority characters are mascots, they're not actual characters, and the movie is a murder mystery, I know for a fact that none of them can be the killers in the movie, because you can't depict minorities as killers, because some people will call that racist. On top of that, these people also can't die. So what I'm doing when I'm watching this movie, a movie that again has a mystery component to it, is watch a bunch of characters die off, thus basically shining a spotlight on who the killer or killers actually were in the end. It ruins the movie for me, and it's all because people are, again, afraid to write actual characters when they are supposedly minority characters. Again, that's the key word. And by the way, I'm actually going to sneak a little bit of film education into this video so you guys can learn even more what the hurdles that these writers have to go through, because feminist writings or black feminist writings have basically precluded almost every single character trait you can possibly have for black characters, specifically black female characters. If you do that overweight woman that's not really a sexual character like the Big Mama or whatever, that's called the mammy stereotype. Now, mammy, by the way, the name comes from Gone with the Wind, was actually the character that the first ever black woman to win Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress, the Oscar, played when she won that award. But that's a negative stereotype, and you're not supposed to have that in the movie. But that's totally fine. If you don't have this older, non-sexualized, overweight person, then you can have, like, you know, an attractive girl that, you know, likes to do things and, you know, hook up with people, you know, a more sexualized character. Nope. You can't have that. That's called the Jezebel. And yes, Jezebel, the actual crappy leftist feminist rag internet garbage website, is named for this concept. The Jezebel is the over-sexualized black female character. So you can't have somebody that's over-sexualized, but okay. That's totally fine. Why don't we have somebody who's not overweight, who's not subservient, somebody who's not really overly sexualized, not even trying to hook up. She does it all on her own. She's a strong woman. She's an independent woman. Let's roll with that. Well, turns out that's the superwoman, and that's considered a negative stereotype because that puts way too much trouble onto black people, black women specifically, making them think that is their duty to live up to and provide everything for everyone at all times. So even a overtly positive portrayal, like you see time and time again by multiple different characters, is also considered a negative stereotype. But what if we do something else? What if we have somebody who's more like angry, you know, a villain? Maybe you want to have somebody with more flavor, and you could do an all-black movie, and you want a black female villain. Well, you better not make that character angry in any way, shape, or form, because that is called the sapphire stereotype, and this is the angry black woman. So you can't have this trait in your movie at all. It's not gonna work. It's considered racist. And again, if you look at all these different stereotypes or alleged stereotypes in their totality, what you end up with is an inability to write characters with flaws. There's also another one, which is the black best friend. This is an unofficial stereotype that happens in the movies and in TV shows. You're also not allowed to have that. So if you want to have somebody to be supportive that isn't the mammy or isn't a superwoman and isn't the main character, that's considered the black best friend. You can't have that. On top of that, you also have one more, which is the tragic mulatto, which is the half black, half white person that is often overcoming certain issues with their identity. This is also a stereotype you can't have for black women. It's considered racist, which means even works like Dear White People, which center around a tragic mulatto, also fail this standard.
So they're pretty much feeling what we've been feeling this whole time?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Exactly. Exactly.
Just making sure that I'm clear on what's going on here.
Now, you know, this wouldn't be a real talk video without me playing the How chick. Of course she's here. Of course she's awful. Let's play the How thing so you can understand what I'm talking about, and then we're gonna roll into her clip. Because if you thought I put a lot of thought and research and energy using a course I actually took in college called Black Female Sexuality in Film in order to give you the left-wing perspective and why it's difficult for these writers who want to be lefty to write characters under these parameters, she's gonna tell you something completely different.
So they're like, wait, this what they've been going through? We can't handle it. We expected them to handle it, but we can't handle it.
You know, I said it before and I'll say it again. This person on the Real Talk, no matter what the situation is, will go out of her way to make herself and minorities the victim in every story humanly possible. And of course, she's trying to point out that white people are so allegedly fragile that this is a big deal. This is a big problem with them. Again, I put up the polling. I talked about this earlier in the video. The people who care the most about race, the people who this is a huge issue for, are black people. Other minorities are under black people and how much they care about race. And at the bottom, the people who don't care about race, the people who are trying to live post-racial, again, by the polling, are white people. So the people who don't mind this the most are white people. But these are actual problems from a creative standpoint because the conditions that the wokerati are putting on Hollywood writers, and a lot of these are diversity hires, so a lot of the actually talented people have to carry more of the weight, and this is especially felt in a lot of TV shows, are basically impossible tasks. You have to put all these minorities in there, but you can't make any of them characters because that would make them interesting, and part of the things that make them interesting is they would have flaws, and those flaws would end up being poorly and considered racist. I mean, I was even watching with my girlfriend the movie Encanto, which takes place in Colombia. It's an animated movie. I think it's put out by Disney or Pixar, one of them. I don't really care. It's not the point. And I found people hating on this movie because they said they have the Abuela character, which is considered a stereotypical character. It's considered a racialized character against the Hispanics. So even though they had Lin-Manuel Miranda attached to this, I believe he wrote some of the songs. He might have written some of the movie. I don't really know. I don't really care. Not looking it up. It's not a big deal. It's a kid's movie. But even with him, the golden boy of the left, the guy who did Hamilton, the greatest musical in the history of all Broadway, ever in the history of Broadway, look at the diverse cast of that musical. Not good enough. You did a little stereotype, or there was a stereotype in something you worked on. Therefore, you're racist. You're participating in white supremacy.
You know what? What I get upset with, ladies, is that they want to try to act like they want to blame it on wokeism. It's not about being woke. What it is that because now you have so many different types of movies, it's about profits. One thing about Hollywood, if you don't make a profit, they're going to leave you alone.
It's about the dollar.
Okay?
Now look, I talk about sometimes how Lonnie is on point, but she is about to go way off the rails, way off the cliff, descending into Crazy Town, and the setup for this is so reasonable, you actually are not gonna see it coming, because she says it's all about profits. And yes, in part, like I talked about earlier in this video, Hollywood is producing profits. However, the profit seeking can lead to diversifying the cast, or having different people with different talents in the writer's room or in the director's chair if they can draw attention. You cannot doubt that Jordan Peele is drawing people in financially to his movies, and he's doing horror movies. He's done 2 of them. I think Get Out was actually incredibly well written. Us falls into the same patterns as Get Out, and when you see it repeated in another movie where they have the big exposition dump at the end, I think it doesn't work for the second time. It's hard to catch that lightning in a bottle, but both those movies profited. Jordan Peele has made a name for himself, and people will go see Jordan Peele works in the future based on the feelings associated with Get Out. He's going to have to bomb time and time again in terms of the audience in order for that not to be the case. Also, horror is already one of the most profitable genres. Lower budgets, high gross, because people still love seeing that in the theater. So Jordan Peele is going to be good. Profits are going to be made in that situation. But Jordan Peele actually tries to write characters. He tries to write interesting characters. I mean, Get Out is all about the fear that a black person feels when they meet their white partner's family. They feel like they're going to lose themselves. A lot of people see Get Out as this very superficial movie where they're like, wow, all the white people are evil villains. All the white people are bad. This is the most racist movie ever. But in reality, Jordan Peele is a half black, half white person. He dates a white woman, and a lot of talk among the black community is essentially if you date a white person, you marry into them, you're going to lose your black identity. So this is just a portrayal of the fears that are common in that community on screen. So if you read it as something straightforward with zero subtext in it, you could say this is the most racist movie ever. However, if you read it as something from the perspective of Jordan Peele, from the perspective of the main character Chris, then you're just getting an insight into how black people feel about interracial dating, which, by the way, black women and black people overall are among the least likely to be approving of interracial dating. So this actually makes sense. It's a good movie. You can nod at me in the Twitters if you disagree. I don't really care. But the point is, it made money. However, Lonnie's going to go in a different direction, and we need to talk about it.
Spider-Man No Way Home has a black girlfriend, Zendaya, and it grossed $1.5 billion worldwide.
Lonnie, what are you doing? You just drove off a cliff, and I'm going to point out how absurd what you just said is. She just said that Spider-Man No Way Home, a movie that features Zendaya, the black girlfriend, grossed $1.5 billion, and everybody's like, love her, oh, so amazing, black girlfriend and Spider-Man, that's why $1.5 billion got sent to go see that movie. If you believe that Zendaya had anything to do with the box office of Spider-Man No Way Home, you're a crazy person. You're actually insane. You need to get your head checked. This movie is built solely on the nostalgia of the previous Spider-Mans. The idea that we would see all the different Spider-Mans on screen fighting their historic villains. I got news for you. Most, if not all, of the characters associated separate from the Spider-Man characters and villains were completely irrelevant to whether or not this movie was going to make money. If Zendaya had COVID and decided she didn't want to shoot this movie, and they said she was on vacation at the beginning of the movie and she didn't participate at all, this movie would have made the same amount of money. Now, they actually used her effectively in the movie, so it might not have been as good narratively. I actually felt like she was crucial to redeeming Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, but if you think Spider-Man No Way Home made $1.5 billion because of Zendaya, the black girlfriend of Spider-Man. Also, it's Spider-Man. Everybody loves Spider-Man, and there's 3 of them in this movie. You're crazy. You're insane. You need to go to the doctor. I need to call a crisis intervention team because you got problems and we can't help you here. It's far above my pay grade on what you need to do with yourself. That was an absolutely terrible example. Try having a movie that actually has a black person in a starring role if you're going to make that argument, or actually has a black person as a box office draw. Not something that even Tom Holland isn't the box office draw in. The character Spider-Man is, and the previous Spider-Man joining up are the box office draws. Also William Dafoe, Alfred Molina, wonderful cast all the way around, but no, it's not due to Zendaya. I mean, Jamie Foxx actually redeeming himself as Electro might have done more. Why didn't you give him some credit?
Yeah, that's great. The movie Get Out by Jordan Peele grossed $255 million.
And the next movie she brings up is Jordan Peele's Get Out, grossing $255 million. You know, Get Out, Spider-Man No Way Home, basically the same premise behind the movie. She didn't even do Black Panther. Black Panther, you could actually make the case. Nobody expected it to hit $1 billion. That shows that you can market to black people in a very successful way, because the black community in the United States of America completely rallied around that movie and pushed it far beyond where Marvel was expecting. But Spider-Man No Way Home and Get Out do not belong in the same category. One is the third installment of a trilogy, a blockbuster film with Marvel's most popular characters, a character that's movie rights are owned by Sony, so you have 2 studios working to make this movie roll, and it also is trying to hit the nostalgia notes by bringing the other stars from the other franchises in this character's history into the fold. So it's incredibly ambitious for a blockbuster movie. It's loaded with stars and cast and all that nostalgia, and again, Spider-Man's girlfriend, a minor part of that. Just go look at the marketing campaign for this movie and tell me if you saw a lot of Zendaya all the way around, if this was sold to you as basically the Zendaya film. Because when I watched the trailers, I saw Doc Ock. When I watched the trailers, I saw hints of the Green Goblin. When I watched the trailers, I saw some flashes of Electro. I didn't see no Zendaya anywhere. And all this was the promise of the premise that they were going to bring back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which they hid from the trailers, which was Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios' decision, in order to build up hype and not spoil it for the audience. Get Out is a good movie. It did insanely well for a horror movie, and in terms of the profits to its budget, it's probably more profitable than Spider-Man No Way Home. On top of that, it basically established Jordan Peele in one shot as somebody serious to be considered as a director and a writer for a box office draw. On top of that, this dude won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay related to this movie. It was his passion project that he finally got greenlit, and it was wonderfully successful. And by the way, credit to the marketing campaign behind Get Out, because those trailers were so engaging that it reeled a lot of people in. A lot of people assumed that this was going to be some like comedy movie about like slavery or whatever, and when they saw that dude get the flash in his eye and start panicking and yelling to get out, and they hooked people on the promise of the premise of this movie. I haven't seen a marketing team knock it out of the park, nail their target demographic like Get Out's marketing team did since Deadpool, another movie that totally understood the audience that they were trying to appeal to and cut the trailer so wonderfully in order to reel people in and get them in the theater, and well outperform expectations for what people thought this was going to do. So they're totally different movies. They're profitable in their own rights, but no, Spider-Man No Way Home is not profitable because of the black girl that's barely in the movie comparatively, and literally there's a plot point about Spider-Man related to her that is actually quite good. I'm not trying to undercut the the girl in any way, but you see, let's just say she's forgettable if you catch my drift.
With the
And I think
onset
that's
of all this, with the onset of streaming services, there is room for everybody. I don't know why they're trying to act like it is not no room. It's plenty of room.
Now, I will say that this is the one part that I actually agree with in this segment. I think they totally glossed over the point about writing, which I explained in detail in this on why it's so difficult for us to see diverse characters, aka non-white characters or non-male characters, written well. It's because the writers are actually afraid to write them well, because you got these feminist theories, these woke people who don't understand movies, characterization, character arcs, basically saying every single flaw is a critique of that protected group. Therefore, we get these bland cardboard cutout non-characters in all of our works, and we just pretend like it's okay because there's diverse mascots on the screen. What wokeism really is about mascots. You ever see a college brochure, open it up, and see way more minorities, way more black people than actually go to the school? Those people are mascots for the school, and I've seen my own university do this, where they go around and select people totally at random, totally because they look like students, to take photos for those brochures. They do pick this in mind, and this is what is happening on screen. And characters should not be mascots. Characters should be characters. They should be engaging. An engaging, thoughtful, well-written character can stick with you so long after the original work, and even through multiple rewatches. That is the key to the game. It's the secret ingredient in the special sauce. Think about characters that you've connected with in stories throughout your lives. Think about those characters that make tragic choices that you wish that they would not make, but you understood completely why they would make it, because they're well fleshed out characters and you have an idea, a sense of them, and it's not breaking with their character in order to make that tragic choice. Sometimes one of my favorite things to do is watch a work that I've seen before, because sometimes the character writing is so interesting, so compelling, so captivating, that even though I know the outcome, even though I know the mistake is going to happen, even though I understand why that character would do that in that scenario, I've connected with them so much that I just watch it again and I still have that little bit of hope that they'll make the right decision, that they'll make a different choice, that things will work out better, because that's how connected you can become with characters when they're actually well written, when they're actually well fleshed out, when they're actually compelling. And we don't see that from woke characters. Name a woke character that has stuck with you beyond 15 minutes after leaving the theater. Name a woke character that you've actually liked or connected with because of their wokeness. Name a woke character that you know anything about other than the fact that you don't like them so much, you actually taking notes and trying to figure out how a writer in a writer's room that is being paid money could construct somebody and put them on screen without anybody telling them to stop, throwing them out of the studio, smacking them across their face with a little notepad, and saying, "You'll never work in this town again."
So as the viewers, we are demanding to see stories by us, for us. So I think that's also shifting too. Before we just took it, as the norm, but now we're like, no, we want to see our stories being told.
This is the problem. Again, it's not the diversity, it's the characters. It's the ideology behind the diversity, the same ideology that prevents these people from actually being fleshed out on the big screen. There's a bunch of foreign movies with their own styles and their own interesting, compelling characters. If you want to see diverse characters from the Asian market, I recommend watching Korean or Japanese films, because American movies with diverse Asians give you these flawless cardboard cutout, not too smart, not too complicated, not too troubled characters, so that you don't think badly about Asians, because they're all about the agenda. And when you care more about saying stop Asian hate than actually writing a character, you're gonna have a pretty crappy movie. And ironically, people are not gonna like them Asian characters. They might even hate them. You might even be spawning Asian hate by writing these terrible, awful cardboard people. There's a way overused quote by people who want to sound incredibly intelligent, even though they're just using the same quote that every other normie uses, from George R.R. Martin. And it basically goes, the only thing that's worth writing about is conflict from within the human heart. These diverse characters, these POCs, these mascots, never face internal struggles. They never have anything to overcome from within. All of their challenges are from without. And all of those challenges from without are all the same exact challenge. They're racism, bumbling, incompetent white people getting promoted despite the fact that they're obviously bumbling, incompetent white people who just don't understand them, and their resolution to all their conflicts is to put that white person in their place, overcome them because they're an easy obstacle, because they're incompetent, yet they're constantly above them because white supremacists, whatever.
Catch. The man.
Sometimes they gotta look them in the face and tell them, you know what? You're white, you don't know anything. I'm sorry, but these aren't interesting character arcs. I'm sorry, but this does not ring true. Again, we talked about it in the beginning, I referenced it in the middle, and I'm gonna conclude with it. White people care the least about race, and they're not racist. And overall, it's just not the case. Black people care the most about race. So when you put these portrayals of all these perfect minorities on screen, and the only thing that's holding them back is somebody who's incompetent, yet they're simultaneously holding them back, that's how you get paper thin cardboard characters facing unrealistic obstacles, and that's how you lose the audience. This is what we're talking about when we say wokeism is destroying Hollywood, because you're just creating new tropes that aren't as interesting as the old tropes, the old cliches, the old stereotypes, because at least some of those old stereotypes had a little bit of edge to them. They had something underneath. There was an underlying truth behind it, because all stereotypes somewhat are rooted in truth. These stereotypes are just made up. They're abstractions. They're mental issues written out by feminist theorists that are being incorporated hand-fistedly into these works, and everybody sees it coming, and that's what they're talking about when they're saying writing is being destroyed by wokeism, because wokeism over time destroys everything, because it is by its very nature a deconstructionist ideology. So what would you expect? But hey, those are just my thoughts. I know this was all over the place. It gave you a lot of information. I hope I taught you something. I know I did if you listen, but a lot of you don't. So whatever. Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked the video, you show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via the support links. They're in the description box as well. I just bumped the microphone. Hopefully that didn't make horrible noise for you. This has been me talking about the real, talking about woke Hollywood, but not actually talking about it. Till next time.